It's day 17 of 21 days of wellness with the wellness professor Leo Simpson II. And it is just like energizing. Okay. Now, let me just tell you, I don't know about you, if you've been following or if you've been looking at it afterwards or you just chimed in. My goodness, it has just gotten gooder and gooder. I remember my dad said that, gooder and gooder. And so being gooder and gooder, I'm talking again about why not doing for others may be hurting you. This is my second installment of it. And yesterday I talked about the 3 C's of existence. Today I'm going to talk about the 3 C's of life. I'm not going to get into the 3 C's of existence. You got to go back to day 16 and get that. But today I'm talking about those 3 C's of life, taking it into another level, getting into the more activity, functional aspect of it. And man, when I tell you, you are going to be excited. But I want to start with this. Now, remember, the main thing we're talking about with regard to wellness, like, I was doing some work yesterday, preparing some content for a client that I'm going to be working with. And as I was working on the content, the information that's going to be presented to them, I began to think about the live from earlier, right? And just some of the things that were shared in that live. And I was realizing how valuable it was to do that live before I actually was doing that work, and how that live set the stage for certain things that were being communicated, right? And so there's this huge posture that you get when you release value and you give and you give and you give and you give, right? And so what you've got to understand with regard to doing for others is doing for self is that you cannot get wellness for yourself. And here's why I brought up the client. If you want to get wellness, you have to understand that giving it allows you to get it. But in the context of this, we've got to understand, as I said yesterday, that we all have a value and we all have a void, meaning we have value to offer and we have voids that exist in us. Our value cannot satisfy or fill our voids. However, our value can fill the voids of others and fill the voids of many others, and others have the ability to fill the voids that we have with their value. And so at the core, just a brief recognition of those 3 C's of existence, when we understand that we exist for the purpose of creating, connecting, and contributing, then we understand that doing for others is doing for self, because only when you release your value are you able to see your voids be satisfied, be filled, because the only way your voids can be filled is by releasing your value, right? Here's why I say that, because when you fail to release your value, what you're actually saying is you're focusing more on your voids, because you have the erroneous thought process that your own value in some way can take care of your void. Whoo, that's good. But that's why you got to release your value, because see, while I was giving to you all who are listening, while I was doing my live, whether it's 1 on, 0 on, 1,000,000 on, by doing what it is that I said I was going to do, regardless of what people think or regardless of how many people show up, but long after I said I was going to do it, I ended up getting value, right? Because I released what it is I needed to release in value, right? So because I released that value and put it in a position to where there was value that you all could get out in the atmosphere, it opened up the capacity for me to be filled with more value as a result of it. So my perspective increased, because the perspective I had, I released, and it opened up room for me to get greater perspective. Okay, let me get off of that. So we talked about those 3 C's of existence. I'm not going to get into detail on them. Go back to day 16 and you can get into detail on it. And if you want to if you're on YouTube, you can go click on the playlist and they're all in order. If you're on Instagram, you can actually go and you can kind of see where they are, the similarity of how they're situated, and you can access them there. But then If you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, you can literally go to my profile and you can see those things and be able to access them. But ultimately, if you're on YouTube, that's the easiest place to be able to get everything in order. Like it's in a playlist. Okay. Anyway, let me get off of that. So the 3 C's of existence are creativity, connection, and contribution. Meaning we exist to create, we exist to connect, we exist to contribute. All right. Now, the 3 C's of life, gotta check the microphone. The 3 C's of life are really pivotal because they get into the active, the functional aspect, right? Life is about that which is, in motion, existing beyond just its presence, but existing in function. Okay. And so remember, I said yesterday that the difference between the 3 C's of existence and the 3 C's of life is that the 3 C's of existence speak to why we exist, whereas the 3 C's of life speak to what we do in our existence. Okay. And so here's what we do in our existence. And remember, this is coming full circle to this thought process of why not doing for others may be hurting you. Okay. So the 3 C's of life are contribution, compensation, and consumption. All right. Contribution, compensation, and consumption. And what you will notice is that contribution is the last one mentioned in the 3 C's of existence, but it leads the way in the context of living. Meaning we exist to contribute, right? But in order for our functionality in life to really take off and actually move in the context of us seeing the benefit of it, then we have to actually contribute. And in the context of the activity of life, contribution is the thing that actually makes things happen. Right? So if you create and if you connect, but you don't contribute, then what you're not going to be able to get is what we're going to talk about today. Now, in understanding contribution, compensation, and consumption, it's important to realize that all of these are independent functions, just like the 3 C's of existence. They're independent functions. They can stand alone. But in the context of them standing alone, for our life experience, they are absolutely necessary. What do I mean by absolutely necessary? They're absolutely necessary because if I contribute, but there is no compensation or consumption, there's really no true value, reward, or honor for my contribution. It's not, right? If I get compensation, but I've not really made a contribution, or like there's nobody consuming, that doesn't make sense, because really you can't have compensation if there's no consumption, and you can't have compensation if there's no contribution. Like that doesn't make sense. And so as we're talking about why not doing for others could actually be hurting you, is so important as it pertains to the reality of making sure you see these 3 C's of life in proper perspective. Let me explain. So I mentioned about contribution, I mentioned about compensation. Well, consumption, remember I talked yesterday, if you were not on, go check it out, about the economics piece. And if you have production and distribution, you can have consumption. But if you have consumption without production and distribution, you get nothing, right? You're going to end up becoming an extinct economy and society, right? And so there has to be, listen to me carefully, there has to be consumption following contribution. In other words, you've got to understand these 3 things operate independently, but also dependently, such that they are interdependent, and that contribution is the chief thing, but you need all the others for contribution to be valuable. In order for compensation to be valuable, you need contribution and consumption. In order for consumption to be valuable, you need compensation and contribution. Okay? Now watch this. I want to share with you. I was thinking about when I worked for UPS some years back. Okay. And I came to UPS. I went to UPS as a seasonal employee. And let me just tell you, it's fairly easy to go to UPS as a seasonal employee and be able to remain there. And I say that because when you come in to give value and make a contribution, like, it changes the game for you. Okay. Like, they love to see people who are willing to give, right? And so I came as a seasonal full-time driver, and I remember the first day I was sitting in the information session right before they started all the screening process and people, putting their documentation in and all of that. It was probably about maybe 100 of us in the room. It was less than that, or right at it, or a little bit above, but somewhere in that number. And they said, "Hey, listen, if you pass everything at this level, you're going to be able to be here at least during the seasonal time, but only some of you will be able to remain thereafter, and that's going to be dependent upon you. And just so you know, not everybody is going to be able to remain, but some people will. All right. And so, wish the best to each of you, blah, blah, blah. All right." And I remember hearing what was said and, what was to be expected and various things. I was like, in that moment, it wasn't, "I want to be here." It was, "I will be here." Okay. I was like, I'm going to be here after this is over with, right? I'm getting ready to give out. I'm going to discover everything that they want me to know, and I'm going to give it to them. So go through the process. They hired me as a seasonal full-time driver. And while I'm in training, I'm sitting there, I'm soaking it all in. I'm like, how does this system work at the highest level? What is it that I need to do at the highest level? So I'm learning everything I need to do about the electronic side, the technology side, the specific details of the safety measures. Like, I'm dialed in. Now you say, "Leo, it sounds like you're doing for yourself." Really? Yes, I was doing for myself. I was. But what I was really trying to discover was, what will be the fuel for my contribution? Like, I wasn't discovering how I was going to get paid. I wasn't discovering how I was going to be able to consume and take care of my family, even though those are things that I did want to know. What I was really trying to discover was, what is going to fuel my contribution that will fuel my compensation and my consumption. See, I did not come in, and this used to be a problem in my mind when we would teach people with regard to, resume building your resume, preparing people through mock interviews when I was in college with career services, preparing people for mock interviews and telling them, hey, you want to make sure you focus on the value that you're going to give them. Don't really tell them about what you're looking to get out of it and what you're looking to receive. And I used to have conflict with that. Even so much and so, I still kind of had a little bit of conflict with it in, maybe the last few years. But now I have no conflict with it. Like, you always want to be thinking about, what can I do for you? What can I do for that person, right? And so, in the context of this experience with UPS, all I wanted to know was, like, how can I contribute the most? But watch this. How can I give? How can I do the most for them so that they can do for me? In what way? By keeping me, right? See, we can talk about commercial generosity and compassionate generosity. We can talk about commercial generosity to the partially vulnerable and compassionate generosity to the completely vulnerable. But at the core, regardless of which side you're on, you want to be thinking about, how can what I do for them fuel what needs to be done for me? And not so much that they can do it back for me. It's more so you want to be locked into how what you do for others makes room, how it makes possible for what you need to get done for you, right? Like in the sales experience, like you want to be so dialed into the value you give those people to the degree that because they are compensating you, because they are partially vulnerable, you want to be able to position them to compensate you at the highest level. This side on this side with the completely vulnerable, they can't give anything back to you. You can give something for them while you cannot get anything from them. You can get something for them, but not from them. You're positioning yourself to become more open and available for your voids to be filled by others. There's a law of this atmosphere that when you give, it's going to be given to you. And anytime it's given to you, it's always going to be exponential, right? So what you want to do is make a rhythm of focusing on doing for others. But let me get back to my story with UPS, and then I'm going to come back to my 3 C's because I'm not done with it. So they keep me because I go out there and I kill it. And here's one of the cool parts, because I have a degree in accounting and I have some unique experiences and background and understanding of accounting. When I do work with someone, I know how to understand it from the back end and the front end and the middle as well. Like I can see it from all layers and all levels because I understand how to assess what the company looks like, its function, and all those types of things. So when they're teaching me certain things, I'm understanding, okay, where most people might look at it, oh, what am I supposed to do? Like, what button am I supposed to press? I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at what's my combinations of things that are going to get me the result so that I can discover how to have a systematic approach to it to continue to replicate it so that I can then make sure I not only produce those results predictably, but I can produce them in a very profitable manner for the company. Because the more profit I produce for the company, the more profitable I am for the company. Did you hear that? The more profit I produce for the company, the more profitable I am to the company. Okay, get back to it. So I was thinking that way. And when I went out and trained with my trainer, man, he got me situated quick. I mean, it was a fast go. Got me situated really, really quick. Excuse me. Had a gas pocket. Whew. You know, we human. He got me situated quickly, and he was able to get me situated and go focus on some other people because he's like, oh, this guy's locked in. He's good. Let's go. And man, when I tell you, I got smooth with my route within a matter of a few days. Next thing you know, I was able to go and help other people. And the division, it was my center manager came to me. He was like, man, let me, I want to appreciate you doing a great job, excellent work and all that kind of stuff. And he started asking me some questions about myself. And he asked me, he said, do you have a degree? I said, I absolutely do. He was like, oh man, I'm bringing you back as a supervisor. Keep doing the work you're doing. Keep making it happen. And we're going to make it happen. And as a result of me giving value, focusing on how I can be so profitable with them, they saw me as somebody profitable. Remember, we're talking about why not doing for others could be hurting you, maybe hurting you. It's because you might be focusing too much on your voids and not enough on your value. You're not focusing on not just your value. You're not focusing on the fact that you have a unique value that you need to release. And when you release it to fill the voids of others, because your value don't satisfy your voids. It satisfies the voids of others. When you release that value for others, and you do it with great generosity, whether it's compassionate generosity or commercial generosity, man, you set yourself up to be seen as somebody who is hugely valuable to others. That's what I discovered. So he told me that. Guess what? They brought me back in the warehouse part-time, and I ended up getting a bacteria infection in my eye. I didn't know it was a bacterial infection until later on. Man, that's good stuff. Consistency plus content times value equals success. Appreciate you, Lloyd. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for your contribution. With that said, so they brought me back in the warehouse, and I ended up getting a bacterial infection in my eyes. I didn't find it out until later on. But that bacterial infection, I didn't know that it was that, but right around the time I got that bacterial infection, they called me to actually go to driver training so that I could go to the next level to become a driver and then be able to move from there into the supervisory role. Man, that eye stuff was working on me, and I got my tail on a plane, which I shouldn't have. My doctor told me I shouldn't have. My optometrist told me I shouldn't have, but I did it anyway. I did it. I'm gonna tell you why I did it. I got on that plane because I was like, I said when I came in as a part-timer that I was going to be here. And then that man told me when he saw the profitable value I was bringing, that I was profitable and that he was going to bring me back as a supervisor. This is my opportunity. Eyes hurting or not. I got my tail on that plane, got over to Atlanta, and my eyes was hurting. I wore shades most of the time. I didn't care. I didn't know I had a bacterial infection, but I was like, I'm here to make it happen. Why? These people say, if I continue to produce value for them, they're going to produce value for me, right? Okay, watch this. The main reason is I wasn't doing it for myself. I wasn't even doing it for the company. I was doing it for my wife and my kids. I live for them. I was making myself vulnerable for them. My value at that company was going to transform the voids that they were experiencing in our difficult situation in life. And so, in order to satisfy their voids, what I had to do is go give value to someone else. So that value that I gave to someone else would return or position me to receive in return some value that would allow me to fill the voids that they were having. But here's what you got to see. I had to make a contribution in order to get that compensation so I could take care of their voids through having something to deal with their consumption. Now, I said this about my 3 C's, contribution, compensation, and consumption, that these are independent functions, but dependent at the same time, which means they are interdependent. But here's the thing you need to know. Here's what you need to know. All of them need each other. As I said, they're interdependent. But you can only prioritize one. Watch this. If you prioritize consumption, you're just greedy and selfish and you're all about yourself. Period. You know that. It's all about what you get. That's what consumption is. It's about receiving. However, when it comes to compensation, yes, you're about yourself, but you're more so about your recognition and your reward. You're about your status. You're about your identity, which means when you prioritize compensation, you're actually saying you are prioritizing compensation as a means of defining your identity. Ooh, that's dangerous. Danger, Will Robertson, danger. That's an old TV show my dad used to always talk about. But watch this. Only when you prioritize contribution, only when you prioritize contribution, can you really know that you are really on the right course to achieve at the highest level. Why? Because contribution is solely about what you release, what you give. Understanding that you are prioritizing and focusing on your value. Guess what? My eyes was hurting like nobody's business while I was out there in Atlanta. And man, had them shades on, kept my water going, doing what I could do. And I passed that test and I was certified to come and drive. And that's all I needed. Because once I got back out there on the road, I was going to deliver and do the same thing I had done during the peak season, during the seasonal time. And as a result of that, next thing you know, I was in management. I went from a seasonal, listen to me carefully. I went from a seasonal full-time driver to a manager in 7 months, to a supervisor, to management in 7 months. 7 months. It was almost unheard of to ever happen that way. But why did it happen? Because I prioritized contribution. I focused on doing for others, understanding that doing for others was doing for self. That's why it happened. See, you could be hurting right now because you might be prioritizing what you have to consume. You might be prioritizing your bills. You might be prioritizing the next gala you want to go to. You might be prioritizing the next vacation. You might be prioritizing the next opportunity you're seeking. If you're prioritizing that, which is your consumption, you are not in the place of wellness. You're hurting yourself. You are literally asking for chaos, frustration, and confusion at higher levels. But if you're focusing on compensation, you're focused on, hey, I made $1 million this year. I made this much in a million, or I made this much in a million in a month, and I got these billions. And you're showing to be on the records of the 40 under 40 and the 30 under 30 and all those different things. Ain't nothing wrong with those things. Those things are wonderful. But the truth of the matter is, if those things are necessary in order for you to know if you making it happen, you are in serious trouble. Because here's what you got to understand. I was listening to Myron Golden yesterday. He said, man, too many people don't understand that all work works. As a matter of fact, if something's not working for you, keep working, because what you really should be focused on anyway is the fact that what's not working for you is working on you, helping you to become the person you really need to become. See, life is more about not what you get or what you actually achieve, but more so about what you become and how you impact others. That's what you got to know. And so if you focused on your compensation, which is your rewards and your recognition, I'm telling you, you are limiting yourself and you're limiting your ability to achieve wellness, because you actually position yourself to achieve chaos, frustration, and confusion at a higher level. Oh, but I tell you, if you, listen to me now, if you prioritize contribution, which means you prioritize releasing your value. You prioritize giving your value, compassionately generous to the completely vulnerable, commercially generous to the partially vulnerable. When you prioritize giving your value at the highest level, listen to me carefully, at the highest level, you will always position yourself for things to be done for you. You will have the core wellness experience. Doing for others is doing for self. Listen to me. I'm going to share this with you. There's a process I'm going through for a position and an opportunity that I'm going to come back and tell you after it's all over with. And literally, I'm seeing right now the developments of this opportunity. I'm seeing the developments of my ability to completely command it for my own benefit, to the degree that once I get this role, once I get this opportunity that I'm talking about, I'm going to come back and tell y'all how I did for others, and doing for others caused it to be something that was done for myself. Oh man, I can't wait to tell you. I really do understand and believe that there are a lot of ways we need to be well in our society. Like we do need financial literacy. We need better health practices. We need a lot of things in regard to policies. There's a lot of different things, right? And here's what I know, and I've been studying this stuff for probably about 15 years. Let me tell you what I've discovered. Looking at our current situation, previous history just in our country, and then looking at historical facts and realities from a number of different societies and different successes and different time frames, ancient, etc. What I have discovered is the people and even the societies that prioritize generosity in the compassionate and commercial standpoints, where they focus on releasing value as a priority, they can overcome anything. In other words, when you prioritize doing for others is doing for self, then literally we get positioned to experience wellness in all other aspects of our life with great predictability. Why? Because when we prioritize the value in one another, by understanding that the value in one another is designed to give value in satisfying the voids of one another, we actually elevate our human experience and context at the highest level and at the deepest depth. Listen to me. Every time you have the ability to give value and release your value at the highest level, and you doubt releasing it because of a focus on your own void, or a perceptive void that limits you in your release, you literally diminish the value that you have and position yourself to end up crowding yourself into your voids to where at some point you can have a mental breakdown. You heard what I just said. Yes, that's why some people, many people, to be honest, are dealing with the mental health issues that they're dealing with, because they have been crowded, overcrowded, bombarded by their voids, and they have rehearsed their voids so profoundly. And as a result of not releasing their value, they haven't made space and room for other people to give to satisfy their voids. I'm telling you, listen to what I'm telling you. If you want to see every void you have be satisfied and filled with value, prioritize contribution and therefore the releasing of your value into the voids of others. Do it, I'm telling you. As a result of just giving, like focusing on doing for others is doing for self, focusing on being compassionately generous and commercially generous. When I was at UPS in my management role, in the management level, the impact that I had on the people that I provided leadership and management to was so profound. So much and so that I began to, while I didn't have the lead role in our center, I became a leading influence in our center. So much and so that I became the lead person to lead our pre-work communication meetings and send people off for the day, because my center manager began to see how the manner in which I influenced the people at the beginning of the day helped to set a solid trajectory for them throughout the rest of the day. But bigger than that, when we got into our peak season, man, during that peak season, it was crazy lit. I'm talking about on fire. We were breaking records. And mind you, when I got to the center that I was assigned to, they said we were the worst in the free world. That means we were at the very bottom of the rankings in the company. Literally, that first peak season after I was there, with the collaboration and the camaraderie that we built as a management team and the influence that we provided to our operations team, what ended up happening was we became the leader, not only in our division, but began to be a top leading center in our region. Like, we had our regional president come down to come check out what we were doing and how we were doing it. Not to mention, in that peak season, we actually achieved over $20 million in cost savings by operating at a high level of efficiency. And cost savings means that X was budgeted for daily operations, and we actually did this over here, which was Y. And so if X was like 60 million, we technically only did 40 million as it pertains to over that period of time, right? What you've got to understand is, when you release your value and you do it with a commitment to being compassionately generous or commercially generous, but saying, look, I'm going to be generous. I'm going to give. Understanding that it is not what I get that matters. It is actually that my giving matters most, because it shows that I understand the value of my existence and my life. What do I mean? Well, my existence is in the context of creativity, connection, and contribution. And my life being lived out is in the context of what? Contribution, compensation, and consumption. And so when I put all of that together, that I realize I exist to contribute. I exist to create, I exist to connect, I exist to contribute. And then that my life is designed for me to contribute, to be compensated, and to consume so that I can have an experience of enjoyment. It changes the game. See, I'm going to say this as I go, because we're talking about why not doing for others may be hurting you. When I just want to reiterate it in this way. When we focus on and prioritize our voids, which when you think about the 3 C's, compensation and consumption both focus on voids, because they're all about what we get. See, recognition, reward, that's compensation. Receiving, that's consumption. So it's all about what we get. And if we focus on and prioritize what we get, we are going to put ourselves in a position to where we're going to limit what we get, because we're going to limit the ability for others to give value to our voids, because we have determined that what our voids need to be satisfied is only limited to the compensation and the consumption that we desire or need. But when we prioritize contribution, meaning we prioritize release, the going out, the release of our value, the release of our skill set, the release of our ability to say kind words, the release of our ability to share with people how to make a change, the ability to share with people something that can change the course of their life, helping people with the skills that we have and causing them to be benefited in a very profound way, whether it's compassionately generous or commercially generous. What happens is we make more room for our voids to be exposed that others' value can feel. Again, not doing for others hurts us simply because it positions us to not have the ability for our voids to be filled with other people's value. And the truth is, I said it earlier, our value is not able to satisfy our voids. So the more of our value we keep to ourselves, the more our voids will become magnified, exponentially magnified, by the way. And we will position ourselves to where chaos, frustration, and confusion and work and family and identity will be profound. And that's not what you want. And so that's one of the reasons why I continue to amplify and magnify and speak to the highest, the reality that doing for others is doing for self. If you want to achieve wellness at the highest level, if you want to achieve core wellness, think doing for others is doing for self. Say doing for others is doing for self. Do doing for others is doing for self. That's all I got for you today. I want you to go be well, because that's what we're about here. We're about inspiring you to be well, right? We're about breathing wellness into your chaos, frustration, and confusion. And we want you to be great. You hear me now?